In the autumn of 1944, an American general sat down with a recommendation for the Medal of Honor. He read what the officer had done. He did not dispute any of it, not one line. Then he refused it. And the reason he gave had nothing to do with courage or with whether the story was true. It was about a strip of cloth, a band of white with a red cross on it, worn on the man's left arm. Because of that armband, the United States would take 58 years to say his name out loud. He was a dentist. Before that, he was the best rifle shot in his regiment and a sergeant in charge of a machine gun. On the morning of the 7th of July, he was both of those men at once, for about an hour. In a tent 50 yards behind the front line, on an island most Americans have never heard of. This is what he did, and this is what it cost to admit it. Benjamin Louis Salomon was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Shorewood High School, an Eagle Scout. He went to Marquette, then transferred west to the University of Southern California, and in 1937 he graduated from the USC School of Dentistry. He opened a practice in Los Angeles, a chair, a drill, a waiting room. 3 years later, a letter arrived from the government of the United States. It did not ask about his degree. He was drafted in 1940, and he reported the following spring, not to a medical unit, but to an infantry regiment, as a private. Warney. The army had a dentist in the ranks, and either did not know it or did not care. So Salomon became a soldier, and he turned out to be extraordinary at it. In regimental competition, he was consistently the best rifle and pistol shot in the outfit. He could strip a weapon and clean it blindfolded faster than most men could do it looking straight at it. Within a year, he was a sergeant, and the section they gave him was a machine gun section. Remember that. In the summer of 1942, the Army finally noticed the diploma and offered him a commission in the dental corps. He turned it down. The record does not say why. It says he accepted it later that year. Lieutenant Salomon, Dental Corps. In 1943, he joined the 105th Infantry Regiment, 27th Infantry Division in Hawaii, as the regimental dental officer. By 1944, he was a captain. In the middle of June 1944, the 27th Division landed on Saipan. Saipan mattered because of what could be flown from it. Take the island, and American bombers are within range of the Japanese home islands. Both sides understood that, which is why the fighting there went the way it did. Captain Salomon came ashore as a dental officer. It was his first combat. Then, on the 22nd of June, the surgeon of the 2nd Battalion was wounded. There was no one to replace him. A battalion surgeon runs the aid station. He is the closest thing to a hospital that men in a rifle company will see on the worst day of their lives, and he has to set up close enough to the fighting to actually reach them. Salomon volunteered for the job. A dentist took over as a front-line battalion surgeon, and on his left sleeve he wore the brassard, white cloth, red cross, the mark that says, "Under the law of nations, this man is not a combatant." By the first week of July, the battle for Saipan was effectively decided. The Japanese garrison had been pushed to the northern end of the island, out of ground, out of supply, out of options. Their commanders chose Gyokusai. The word means, roughly, shattered jewel. The idea that it is better to break than to be taken. We should, on the night of the 6th of July, somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 Japanese soldiers assembled for a final attack. It came at 4:45 in the morning on the 7th. It remains the largest banzai attack of the Pacific War. The 1st and 2nd Battalions of the 105th Infantry were the westernmost American units on the line, on the coastal plain. They took the full weight of it. Captain Salomon's aid station was a tent, 50 yards behind the forward foxholes, 50 yards. In the first minutes, about 30 wounded men reached him. The citation says they walked, crawled, or were carried in. The tent filled. Outside, the perimeter came apart. What happened inside that tent is in the official citation, and I am not going to dramatize it. The enemy reached the tent. Captain Salomon fought them at the entrance, and under the walls of it, with a rifle and with his hands, while 30 wounded men lay on the ground behind him. He was a surgeon. He had a red cross on his arm. He fought anyway, and it bought a few minutes. Then he made the decision this whole story turns on. He could not hold the tent, so he ordered the wounded out, told them to get back to the regimental aid station any way they could, walking, crawling, dragging each other, and he went out the front to buy them the time. According to the account the Army's own combat historian compiled afterwards, from the men who got out, the account a president read aloud in the Rose Garden 58 years later, what he said was, "I'll hold them off until you get them to safety. See you later." 4 men were working a machine gun near the aid station. All 4 were killed. Captain Salomon took the gun. The dentist from Los Angeles, who 2 years earlier had commanded a machine gun section as a sergeant, sat down behind a crew-served weapon and started firing. No American saw him alive again. The attack lasted about 12 hours. When it was over, a recovery team went out. Among them were Chief Warrant Officer Stephen Burns and a combat historian named Edmund Love. They found Captain Salomon bent over the barrel of the machine gun. The ammunition was gone. From the ground around him, they worked out that he had moved the gun 4 times. What Love wrote down is precise, and it is worth being precise about it, because it is repeated wrongly almost everywhere. The Medal of Honor citation says, when his body was later found, 98 dead enemy soldiers were piled in front of his position. 98 in front of the position. That is what the official record states. It is not a personal tally, and the citation never claims one. Love counted 76 bullet wounds in Salomon's body, in addition to stab wounds. A physician who examined him concluded that 24 of those had been received while he was still alive. 24, and he kept firing. The 2 battalions he belonged to lost 406 men killed and 512 wounded that morning. On the other side, 4,311 Japanese soldiers were killed. Gyokusai was never expected to succeed. It was not meant to. There is no clean way to describe a morning like that. What can be said is narrow and specific. There were about 30 wounded men in a tent 50 yards from the line, and 1 man stood in the doorway so that they could leave. If that is the kind of thing you think should be remembered, subscribe. That is the entire reason this channel exists. Brigadier General Ogden Ross asked Edmund Love to write up a recommendation for the Medal of Honor. Love wrote it. The evidence was not thin. There were survivors who had been carried out of that tent. There was a sworn statement from Warrant Officer Burns, and there was the position itself. The recommendation went up to the commander of the 27th Infantry Division, Major General George Griner. Griner read it. He accepted that all of it was true, and he refused to approve it. His reason, in writing, was this: Captain Salomon had been wearing a Red Cross brassard on his arm. In Griner's words, under the rules of the Geneva Convention, to which the United States subscribes, no medical officer can bear arms against the enemy. There was a second objection sitting behind it. A pistol or a rifle might be argued as personal defense. A machine gun is a crew-served weapon, and a crew-served weapon is not what a protected man carries to defend himself. The medal was refused on the weapon. Consider what that means. Before the Army made Ben Salomon a doctor, the Army made him a machine gunner. It trained him. It promoted him for it. It gave him a section. Then it commissioned him, tied a red cross to his sleeve, and sent him to a tent 50 yards from the enemy. And when he used the one skill the Army itself had given him, to cover 30 wounded men going out the back, that was the thing that disqualified him. The armband was meant to protect him. Instead, it erased him. And here is the part that makes it worse, rather than simpler. The law Griner cited does not actually say what he took it to say. The Geneva Conventions have long recognized that medical personnel may carry arms for their own defense, and for the defense of the wounded in their care, without losing their protected status. That principle sits in Article 22 of the First Geneva Convention. Griner applied the reading of his day. He was not a villain for it, but the reading was narrow, and a man's name went into a drawer because of it. And it stayed there. In 1946, Love published the account in the Infantry Journal, so the story was never secret. It was simply unrewarded. In the early 1950s, Love submitted it again. It came back. The time limit for Second World War awards had expired. In 1969, the Surgeon General of the Army, Lieutenant General Hal Jennings, took it up. So did the Dean of the USC Dental School. In 1970, the Secretary of the Army, Stanley Resor, approved it and sent it on to the Secretary of Defense. It was returned without action. 25 years by then. Every refusal procedural. Not one of them disputed a single fact. It took another dentist to finish it. In 1998, Dr. Robert West of the USC School of Dentistry, Salomon's own school, went through the file, found where the process had gone wrong, and resubmitted it through Congressman Brad Sherman, with the backing of the Chief of the Army Dental Corps, Major General Patrick Scully. In 2001, Congress waived the time limit in that year's Defense Authorization Act. The objection about medical officers was set aside. On the 1st of May, 2002, in the Rose Garden of the White House, President George W. Bush presented the Medal of Honor to Captain Ben L. Salomon. There was no family there to receive it. By then, there were no living relatives at all. So it was handed to Dr. West, a man who had spent 4 years reading a file about a stranger, and he passed it on to the Army Dental Corps. 58 years. One correction. Because it is repeated constantly, and because it matters. You will read almost everywhere that Ben Salomon is the only dentist ever awarded the Medal of Honor. That is not accurate. 2 Navy dental officers received it in the First World War, Lieutenant Whedon Osborne and Alexander Lyle. Lefams, Salomon is the only dentist of the Second World War to receive the Medal of Honor, and the only one the United States Army has ever awarded it to. He does not need the exaggeration. The record is enough. The medal is at the Army Medical Department Museum at Fort Sam Houston in Texas. A copy hangs in the dental school in Los Angeles. Ben Salomon himself is at Forest Lawn in Glendale, California, cremated. In a numbered niche in a wall, he had been in the Army a little over 3 years, and a battalion surgeon for about 2 weeks. And the part worth keeping is not the number in front of the gun. It is the sentence in the citation that comes just before it, that he ordered the wounded to make their way back as best they could, while he attempted to hold off the enemy until they were clear. He held the door. That was the job he gave himself. If a rule has ever stopped something you did from counting, I would like to hear about it. Tell me in the comments, and subscribe. There are more of these. Most of them were never told either.